had a mentor when I was a young kid, and he told me something I never forget. He said, Richie, only two things can change your life: the books you read and the people you meet.
Right.
It becomes very, very strong, and the nicotine content goes through the roof. And my meter for that is I get the hiccups. So once I start hiccuping, I'm going, you know, I guess it's time to put this down.
That's funny, man.
If you're a cigar smoker, the mysterious Cuban cigars, I got news for you. Drive it like you stole it, bitches.
Well, hey everybody, it's Eric with Muscle Cars with Eric, and today we have a really cool special episode, I guess you'd call it. It's Cars and Cigars. Last year we did a Cars and Cigars event. It was a nonprofit fundraising event for a nonprofit organization called Put on the Cape, a Foundation for Hope, and I had a chance to meet Richie Cucharo, who is a cigar tobacconist from the East Coast, and he still runs a really cool website, and we're going to sit here talk about some cool cars we've seen in our lives.
Absolutely.
But talk about some of the cool cigars we got going on there. So, hey, Richie, I appreciate you coming out here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, now you said you moved here a few years ago.
Yep, July of this year will be 3 years.
Oh, good for you.
We left Long Island, New York, my wife Jennifer and myself, and we live in Goodyear, Arizona now.
Very nice.
At the end of Estrella Parkway, out in the prairie,
you said your backyard is the mountains, right?
I grew up looking at telephone poles and rooftops, and now I look at mountains and prairie, which is a wonderful contrast.
Yeah, it sure is, you know, and I tell you, we were talking off camera a little bit about the atmosphere out here is first of all really clean. And
yes.
It's really, I mean, you know, what color is the sky we have there? Blue sky.
Yes.
And, you know, what is it going to be like tomorrow? It's going to be hot and sunny.
Well, the one thing we know here about the summers is you don't have to shovel the heat.
No, okay. You don't, no. And you know, that's the nice thing about the summers, that it's brutally hot, but you have air conditioning, you have swimming pools.
That's for sure.
You have cold beverage.
Exactly.
And you always have opportunity to smoke a really cool cigar.
And I did put an air conditioner in my garage.
Yeah, nice, nice. Yep. Yep, that's the next step for us, is kind of redo our garage here. But you came over here, and I appreciate you coming over to my humble home here in Surprise, Arizona.
It's our pleasure.
And we're going to talk about cigars. But give us a little, you know, like brief Reader's Digest condensed version of your history, because you really got a very cool cigar history, and you mentioned some cool cigar names that are legendary now that you helped them get started. So give us a little bit of information about that.
Well, I've been around a long time. I had a bunch of retail stores, and in 1993 I began to see how the cigar business was beginning to really pick up. That was really the first huge boom in the premium cigar business. And I decided to build a first store called Tobacco King on Long Island, very wealthy area, and it was in a little rented house, and we specialized in premium cigars out of walk-in Humidor, and that was my first entry into the premium cigar business, being a tobacconist.
Now, what kind of, I know we have premium cigars now, and the labels have changed over the years, I'm sure.
Well, there's a zillion of them.
What were the top 2 or 3 premium cigars back in the day?
Well, back in the day, you had all the major brands, whether it was Partagas, or Macanudo, or Monte Cristo, but the interesting thing was Ernesto Carrillo of La Gloria Cubana was just starting to get going, and was the hottest ticket in town, to the point where if you wanted any cigars from Ernesto, the deal was it's UPS, COD cash, minimum order $3,000, and he had to pick the order.
Oh, wow.
So you'd get, you know, out of 10 boxes, you get 5 boxes of little thin Panatellas, and then the rest of them were really good ones.
Okay.
You had, as you progress through the late 90s, in 1997, you had a young guy named Jonathan Drew, who ended up creating, that's correct, the Acid brand.
Yes.
And he was a distributor for another brand, and then he left that guy, and I remember him calling me saying, oh, Richie, can you try and sell my Acid cigars? And literally the rest is history. You had a guy like Rocky Patel, who's the rock star of cigars today, pull up to my store in 1997 in an Oldsmobile, 1985 Oldsmobile. Was probably worth $800. And he's had his...
I remember those. They were nasty looking, weren't they?
That didn't shut off when he shut it off. And he had his little box of Indian Tobacco Robustos, a $3 cigar, and and I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm traveling the country, going to guys that I know are good tobacconists to please carry my cigars. Same with Nick Perdomo. Nick Perdomo and his dad visited us back in the day.
Buddy of mine, 34 Hot Rod Dad, got to watch this. He's a big Perdomo fan.
Yeah,
he lives just down the street.
So back then, you know, everything was rocking and rolling until the third quarter of 1997, and that cigar boom ceased.
Oh.
Absolutely ceased, meaning that the cigar business didn't die, but it went back to the pre-boom quantity of cigars being smoked and imported. Oddly enough, this year, we have surpassed the importation of premium cigars. This year, we've surpassed that.
What the boom was.
Correct, which is a great sign. So over the last several years, it's become hugely popular again. In the year 2000, I sold the chain of stores. I had 3 of them at the time, and took a couple of years off. And then I worked for 2 tobacco companies. One was Liggett & Myers, the old Liggett & Myers cigarette company. But then, interestingly enough, in 2003, I got hired by Nat Sherman Tobacconists out of New York, which is a legendary cigarette and cigar company. I was the regional manager in New York.
And this after you retired, after you
correct,
sold your
yeah.
business.
Well, you know, it was
so it's pseudo-retirement?
Yeah, you wanted it condensed, so, you know, I'm condensing it.
Yeah, right
And
on.
then after that, I went to work for the company who was my tobacco distributor, a billion-dollar firm on the East Coast, and headed up their premium cigar service division. And that was the most rewarding part of my career. The last 5 years I was employed, I actually put retailers in the cigar business. I helped them build their walk-in humidors. I helped them fill their humidors. I guided them. I taught them, and hundreds of retailers all over the East Coast. And that was the greatest thing to do, because you had retailers that were great gas C-store guys making a ton of dough, but how many Marlboros you're going to sell? How many Wrigley gums you're going to? How many lotto tickets you're going to sell?
Yep.
And they wanted to make margin, and many of them ended up building entire new stores. So it was a lot of fun. It was great. When I retired, I moved here to Arizona. I got a phone call from one of my Pennsylvania retailers, young guy. I helped build 3 cigar stores, and he said, Richie, I'm starting a website. I want to sell cigars online, and it's called thecigarthief.com. Would you help us? Would you help us with the descriptions and the reviews and do content for us? And I said, absolutely.
All right. Thecigarthief.com.
Thecigarthief.com.
I'm going to drop the link down below. You got to check it out.
It's a lot of fun.
And go on there and order some cigars and learn all about some
Well,
cool
I
stuff.
think you'll enjoy it. If you're a cigar smoker, you'll enjoy it. I also have a little Ask Richie section there. You can see some of the posts we put in there, and you can read a lot of the reviews. Soon thereafter, one of his distributors wanted to open one of these types of sites, and my guy at the time who owned the site was getting so busy with his retail businesses, he sold the site to this young couple, Sahil and Prutha, very, very nice young couple out of Pennsylvania. They own a company called SZ Wholesale, which, if you're a retailer of cigars, you probably buy them directly from the manufacturers, but you also probably fill in with distributors, and he sells cigars wholesale to retailers all over the country. So now, at this exact point in time, I work with both companies, and it's been a lot of fun. It's just enough work to keep me involved in the industry. I love going to the trade shows. In fact, the last trade show I went to was the first time I saw Jonathan Drew after 27 years of selling his acid cigars.
Wow.
And it was great. And I looked at him and I said, do you know who I am? And he said, no. And I told him my name, and I told him the story I just told you. and he put his arms out and we hugged, and it was great, and it was wonderful to see him, because despite probably being worth $150 million on a bad day, he never forgot where he came from.
Oh, that's very cool.
So it was very rewarding, and it's a lot of fun. So hopefully, you know, as time goes by, getting to meet you and what you do was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
we had fun, didn't we?
Yeah, and you know, cars are great, and we found so many guys, whether they're retailers or just cigar smokers.
Do you remember that one vehicle at that show? It was a pickup truck,
Okay.
old 38 to 55. I don't remember what year exactly, forgive me for that. But instead, it had a trailer hitch, but on the trailer hitch was a table with an umbrella.
I think so.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Well, it was a great show for a great cause.
Yes, it was,
And I think, you know, I had a mentor when I was a young kid, and he told me something I never forget. He said, Richie, only two things can change your life: the books you read and the people you meet.
Right.
So meeting you was great. It's great to be here. I'm hoping that as time passes, we can do a little more together.
Sure.
I told Eric, who's a cigar guy, obviously, that I have more cigars in a humidor at home than I'm ever going to smoke if I live to be 150 years old. So maybe, you know, as we proceed,
I like that idea.
you know, maybe we can do what we're doing today,
Yeah.
and pick a different cigar every now and again,
Yep.
and be able to share our thoughts
Sure.
with your audience.
And that kind of brings up, we're going to segue from on the website, you have the Ask Richie portion.
Correct.
So you brought a couple cigars here.
I got something that's
and
great.
So we're going to ask Richie about these cigars.
This is terrific. Anybody that's considers themselves even a little bit knowledgeable about the premium cigar business will know the name A.J. Fernandez.
Right.
A.J. Fernandez is probably, and I call them all kids because I'm an old guy, but he's probably become one of the world's greatest master blenders, all right? And I say that because it's one thing if the owner of a cigar company blends his own great cigars. It's another thing when General Cigar, Altadis, and big guys reach out to him to juice up their brand. So you can turn around and you'll see an A.J. Fernandez Monte Cristo. You'll see an A.J. Fernandez H. Upman. You'll see
kidding.
Correct. So we at SZ Wholesale, the wholesale end of where I'm working, that couple, great couple, very, very, very loyal A.J. Fernandez customers. We sell a lot of A.J. Fernandez cigars. And in appreciation to that, several months ago at the last one of the trade shows that we went to, my boss sat down with A.J. Fernandez, and he was so appreciative of the efforts the company has made on his behalf that he said, I'm going to produce an Enclave style exclusively for you guys.
Wow.
And the Enclave cigar is a Nicaraguan puro, but it's, I believe it's
What
only...
is I know Nicaragua. What's a puro?
Well, a puro means, Nicaraguan puro is, there's nothing but Nicaraguan tobacco.
Okay.
All right?
So puro means pure.
Correct.
Okay.
So the Enclave that's available, with the exception of this one, is either Corojo wrapper or a Maduro wrapper. And A.J. Fernandez cigars, for the most part, are very robust. They're very full-bodied, Cuban-style smokes, which many, many, many people like.
Right.
But there's a big segment of the market that, you know something, they don't want to go 100 miles an hour all the time.
Right.
So what A.J. Fernandez, what I feel is one of his best characteristics is he can make a blend to give you the complexities of full-bodied cigars, but temper the strength into a smoothness so that you can literally enjoy the cigar from stem to stern. And when in a cigar like this, it's probably about an $8 cigar. When you think of it, you know, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, right? You don't want to have to dump you know, 25% of the cigar because it's gotten bitter or it's a little sour.
Exactly. And that happened before.
It happens all the time.
Cigar and all of a sudden it starts to taste like, my wife says it tastes like plastic.
Right, but there's nothing wrong with that, because there are some guys, and I can be included in that, many times when you get to that last part of the cigar, after you pull the band off, it becomes very, very strong, and the nicotine content goes through the roof. And my meter for that is I get the hiccups. So once I start hiccuping, I'm going, you know, I guess it's time to put this down.
That's funny, man.
But I think when you look at this is a golden Connecticut shade wrapper, and
this is cool.
It's got a closed foot, which is old school.
Show them.
Right here, you'll see it's closed foot, so that you're just going to burn that right off. And when we begin, you know, however long we smoke it and the duration that we're involved, I think you'll agree that it's not a mild cigar. I would categorize it as it's mild to begin with, but then it gets to be medium bodied, which is exactly where it stays, which is a really, really great testament to AJ Fernandez's blending.
Really?
Of course, because every cigar, no matter what you're smoking, the only reason it tastes the way it tastes is because of the way it was blended. Whether it was the wrapper, the filler, the binder, that combination of leaves produces exactly what you're smoking. So when you think of cigars, and you think of a Macanudo Portofino, which has been around forever, and you'll pick one up. Now, it won't cost you $2 like it did in 1997. It's probably an $11 cigar, but it tastes exactly the same as it did in 1997. And that's a testament to the power of a company like General Cigar to amass the leaves they need on a consistent basis. In fact, if we're talking about a Portofino, the only problem they have is getting the tubes to put them in, because the tubes are made in China, right?
Oh, great.
Which is interesting.
Is that those glass tubes?
No, those are the little aluminum tubes.
Oh, okay,
right?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the great characteristics of this cigar is, look, I've always said, whether it's on our website or speaking with retailers, many retailers do not smoke cigars. They're great retailers, they just don't partake. So they'll reach out to us at our wholesale end and say, look, I need more mild cigars. I need more really strong cigars. So when you think of a cigar like this, and somebody only likes to smoke mild cigars, this is a great cigar not only for a newcomer, because it's not going to knock him down, but it is going to give his palate a little run for its money, not to overpower him, but to let him kind of see that becoming more full-bodied doesn't necessarily mean harsher or stronger or to venture into an area that he's going to say, oh, no, I don't like this.
Well, why don't we get these things cut?
You got it.
Here, I have a cutter here, unless you brought your own.
Well, I got one here, too.
Cool. Now, I learned something, that I was cutting my cigars way too, cutting my cigars way too much.
Right, well, now you got a cutter with a back on it, so you can't.
Right, yep, and that's why
a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, and here's a lighter.
Okay.
Now, I know that I guess there really is no right way or wrong way to light a cigar. But
well,
give us some information here on what you're doing.
I think there's a right way and a wrong way.
Right.
You got,
and that's why you're here.
I have found out heating it up is the best. You got.
Now, what does that do? Obviously,
what it's done, it's going to heat it up. At some point in time, it's not going to.
You fired? Want some more?
No, I'm good.
Good.
But to each his own.
Well, I learned to do this. I was at a retail cigar shop that hosted our show last year, Cards and Cigars, Ambassador Fine Cigars, and they're in Peoria, and they have another location like north East Phoenix towards Scottsdale.
Terrific
And
operation.
they were, well, yeah, I think so too. They're
Yeah.
pretty cool people. But I was watching a guy.
You're good to go. And I'm just
Watching behind the counter, and he was heating it. I'm like, well, that's a pretty cool idea. And I asked him about it. He's like, basically, yeah, you heat the cigar so it burns better when you light it.
absolutely. And never use a match. And be careful when you use matches.
Speaking of matches, I haven't had a match since Superman died.
There you go.
Bada zing, bada boom. All right.
We don't have the
I know.
symbol here.
Stick to the day job, right? So, this cigar tastes really, really good.
Well, as you'll notice, you got a great draw, right? And I've talked to so many retailers and cigar smokers. Oh, you know, that's that whole cigar. No, I don't like that cigar. They don't have a good draw.
Right.
And the bottom line with that is, no, you know, cigars are made by hand. They're not machine made, and no cigar is made to give you a tight draw. Okay, when that roller is rolling that cigar in the factory, and the boss goes, "Maria, you have a call," and she turns and she crimps it. Well, you know, that's not supposed to happen.
Right.
So
I've had cigars that are really, like, I got a whole box of cigars. I think it was Onyx, the Lonsdales. A whole box of cigars, and the draw was so tight that we ended up pitching a box because it sucked. It
I
wasn't
have
any
to.
good.
I was waiting.
And you laughed.
I
so-
was waiting to hear the name, because way back in the day, when Onyx came out, they came out, and the first round, I'm talking 100 years ago, were all like that, and we couldn't sell them. And people would bring them back and go, "What happened?" And they're still around, Onyx, and I'm sure you bought that box long after the ones I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, probably bought it 10 years ago or so.
Okay, so then again, that's something that could be indicative of the rollers that are making it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All right.
because interestingly enough, everybody, you're a cigar person. If you're a cigar smoker, the mysterious Cuban cigars, I got news for you. I bought a box of Cohiba Siglo 6 from Spain. I was fortunate. I hope the Justice Department's not going to come and arrest me. Clipped it just the way we clipped these. I couldn't get anything out of this cigar until I actually cut an inch off the foot, off the end.
Yeah.
And then they opened right up. Now,
I've had
that was the whole. That was the whole box.
The opposite end. I couldn't
Okay.
get a draw until I got down about an inch and a half into the
Okay.
cigar. Otherwise, I was
Right.
sucking my lips through it.
In fact, I'll
my,
tell
my
you,
cheeks.
we're talking about these little types of things. I remember doing a post for the Cigar Thief, and it was just titled, "What's Wrong with This Cigar?" And I had, this burns sideways, this doesn't work, this gets a hole in it, you know, there's a zillion combinations. And believe it or not, more often than not, to fellas that, you know, house their own cigars, you have a personal humidor, you know, they're, for the most part, passive humidors. So it's a little box, you have it on your desktop, you open it up, it's got the little
trays for the sponges.
well,
for the
it's
water.
got this little sponge, usually a foam.
Yep, yep.
The first mistake many guys do is they don't moisten those with distilled water.
Oh, that's all I use is distilled
You have
water.
to use
Yeah.
it. But it's a little box, and it varies.
Yeah.
And
Especially here in Arizona. Oh my word.
You're fighting.
I mean, I have a
You're fighting.
I have a room humidifier adjacent to the small little table that my humidor sits on to keep the humidity up there. Plus, I use those sponge things with distilled water, only distilled water. And you know what I found to replace the sponge was I went and bought some florist's foam.
Correct.
And just sliced it nice and
Correct.
thin to fit up there on top of that thing. And it has to be the water absorbing foam, because I bought the foam one time and I'm like, why isn't this soaking up water? It's floating on top of the dish. I'm like, what's going on?
Exactly.
And I looked at the package and I just bought the wrong stuff.
Well, the issue is very real in Arizona. I have a 6-foot tall humidor cabinet in my home, and I have placed hundreds of them all over the Northeast with a machine, a little Cigar Oasis humidifying machine. And when I moved to Arizona, I shipped all my cigars, I set up the little humidification device, turned everything on, and 3 days later, this thing is not turning off.
Right.
And I remember calling the manufacturer, who I've sold a zillion of their units, and I said, what's going on? And they said, Richie, you're in Arizona, what's the humidity out there? I said, 15%. She goes, look,
That's on a good day.
It's not on a bad day in New York, it's 50.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
So I ended up having to get another machine. So now there's actually 2 of them in there.
Damned.
But then the humidity at the top of the unit, if it was 71 at the base, it was maybe 65 at the top. So I had to subsidize that with little blocks, to set up there. So yeah, humidity and how you store your cigars, especially if you're an Arizona smoker, if your humidor is working good, the only tip I can give you is you have to at least once a month take those cigars and shuffle them. So you got to move the top to the bottom, because one of the reasons if you ever have a cigar and it starts burning up the side, starts getting a hole in it, is because the humidity is not dispersed evenly throughout your humidor. So do yourself a favor, open it up, rotate them. Very, very, very important, because look, if a cigar doesn't draw, it's really a manufacturing defect.
Okay.
You're dealing with people here.
Right.
Not
every cigar is handmade.
By robots.
Hand rolled.
What do you think of the taste? It's getting a little interesting
I love it.
now.
It's very good. It has that nice kind of little back flavor of a little tasting a little coffee in it, just a little bit.
A little cedar wood too, but extremely smooth, but flavorful. So it's not like you need more power to get the taste out of it.
And it smells good too.
Yeah, very aromatic cigar.
And that's the nice thing about it is it's funny. We talk about this. A lot of restaurants, they have a smoking section, but they don't want you to smoke cigars. And I think it's really odd. We got jets coming by here, so they're long live and God bless America with the jets rolling overhead. We're not far from Luke Air Force Base.
Right, it's nice to see your federal tax dollars at work in the sky.
I had a chance to, you got to check it out on my channel. I did a video of the F-22 Lightning.
Oh, wow.
Down there at Luke Air Force Base. They gave me kind of carte blanche, and it was cool.
Nice.
But anyhow, we were at this, my wife and I were on vacation, Daytona Beach Shores, and we went to this really cool restaurant. I honestly forget the name of it, but it's a really hip place. And we walked in and we said, hey, it was hardly anybody there. Middle of the afternoon, hey, can we smoke? Do you have a smoking section? Yes, we do. It's back over here, which is a nice area. I said, can we smoke cigars? And the girl, she was really cool. She's like, well, you're not supposed to, but my boss is in a meeting and I don't think he's going to care anyhow. All right, good. So there's people around different tables, not too close to us, smoking cigarettes. And my wife and I think she had a Perdomo, and I had a Cohiba Red Label.
Good cigars.
Fired it up. And there was a group of people over here, professionals, they were having their lunch or their post-work party celebration. Basically, they're pulling up buckets of Corona, okay? And somebody chirped over there that, they're smoking a cigar. And one of the guys says, "Oh, don't worry about it. I smell those cigars, and those are really high-end cigars. And this is kind of like the odor you want to smell." And it's interesting that these places allow cigarettes, which smell, as far as I'm concerned, terrible. Yet you have a nice aromatic cigar, and it doesn't smell like donkey butt.
Okay.
And I think it provides an air of sophistication.
Okay, well, the science of that is that, and look, I was one of the first guys in the country to start doing cigar dinners back in 1993. And then they became the rage. Now they're sporadic.
I remember in the mid and late 90s in Detroit area, cigar dinners were everywhere, and you had your matching whiskeys.
Oh, it was great. One thing I learned from the restaurant owners, predominantly those dinners were held on a particular day when it was closed to the public and open for the 100 guys that we would have to have the dinner. And these restaurant guys said to remove the odor from cigars took another day of sanitizing, because tobacco is a strange aroma because it permeates into the walls, it permeates into the drapes, into the upholstery. So unless it's a really well ventilated area, that establishment owner is going to have, you know,
issues,
some work he's got to do, and some of them don't want it. You know, cigarette smoke is a lot thinner. It might be a lot more pungent to your nose, but it's a thinner smoke stream when you really think about it. The cigarette tobacco is all processed and treated to burn quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
So they smoke more.
Correct. And so it goes from stem to stern a lot faster than a cigar, as you know. So you turn around, you have, you know, a dozen cigarette smokers. They're in and out after 7 puffs. You take a dozen cigar guys and they're sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yep.
And it depends on, you know, the smoke eaters. If you're a cigar smoker and you've gone to your local lounges, those smoke eaters at the ceiling calibrate how much air they're going to move per cubic feet per second.
Oh wow, okay.
So, and they're very expensive.
I'll bet they are. I noticed Ambassador Fine Cigars, it does not smell like cigars when you go in there.
No.
There's a dozen people smoking cigars.
In fact, one of the retailers I remember helped him build a lounge, and he had a world-class smoke eater, and then he was mounting fans, overhead fans. And I had an idea, and I said, you know something, can you invert the blades in the fan? He goes, why? I said, because instead of blowing it down, maybe it'll pull the smoke up. And it turned out to be a brilliant idea.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, because you'd literally light up a cigar, and before the whiff of smoke got to here, it was gone.
That's cool.
So the fan pulled it up into the ceiling, and the smoke eater, you know, ejected it out of the room. So it was kind of interesting when you think about it.
That's awesome.
Now this is getting a little more interesting.
This is a very, very good cigar. I consider smoke this cigar for an hour. And you know what? Rich, we actually had a chance here to smoke the cigar for a little bit. And this cigar is really, I call it the Mac Daddy. Now you mentioned me to take off the band.
I wanted you to take off that band because you're getting down, now we're getting down to probably, you know, around a third. Have I been true to my word that it has remained at a very consistent medium body, very smooth?
Yes, yes, because my experience, as we talked about earlier, was sometimes you get down there and it's a very strong, kind of a pungent thing, and when I draw it, it actually sometimes is a really bad taste on my tongue. And my wife calls it tastes like plastic burning.
Well, it changes. I mean, that's why.
But this one doesn't.
Correct. Like, and this is one of the few. The interesting thing here is that normally the nicotine content really intensifies as you get going as well. But this I have found, and again, it's a testament to AJ Fernandez's master blender status and ability to really put together a wrapper, binder, and filler combination that the taste can remain consistent, smooth, but still very flavorful.
Right.
So some of the flavors will intensify down the line, but there is absolutely no harshness, okay, you know, down the road, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, it's smoking just like it did when I first lit it. Really nice draw, really nice aroma. I love the fact we're hanging out here in my backyard, chilling,
this is a
smoking
pleasure.
some cigars. I mean, this is really cool stuff. So
this is a and we're you know, these days are numbered here in Arizona.
Yeah, we're reaching the point where it's going to be too brutally hot to hang out unless it's like in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Or
maybe 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking of doing that this morning when I got up. But so, Richie, we talked about a lot about cigars and whatnot, and the next episode we're going to talk a little bit about cars.
Okay.
I've got some cars that I have shot video of, and maybe you could join me on one of these adventures.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure.
A, what's in your garage thing, but I'll have to wait until after the summer's up. But in the meantime, I think what we're going to do is meet here a couple more times because there's some questions I have for you regarding like how an actual cigar is wrapped, and if there's an opportunity to visit places like that I would like to travel to. And also, like, off camera we were talking about my wife's choice of flavored cigars, and maybe we can address that as well. But what we say in Eric's Garage AZ land is drive it like you stole it, bitches. So can you say drive it like you stole it, bitches?
Drive it like you stole it, bitches.
Drive it like you stole it, bitches. Till next time, guys. Thanks. Hey guys, thanks for watching the last video. I hand selected a couple videos for you to watch right now. Click here.